approach to a technology that is going to transform how we live. It was a great example of the UK leading the way, an enormous tribute to our incredible entrepreneurs and businesses, many of which are being poorly represented by him and his constituency.
Believe me, that's a belter of a question. So much so, cue our Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's meltdown at PMQs. But before we get to that zinger, we'll start with this zinger from SNP's Kirsten Oswald about what the nasty party are doing to our vulnerable disabled.
His government will say that disabled people have a duty to work from home or lose their benefits, as if a suitable job of this kind is something that can be conjured up at will. It should be obvious to anyone that this kind of punitive policy isn't incentivising work, it's simply punishing disabled people who are already among the most marginalised in our communities. So can the Prime Minister do his duty and tell us now how many of the 137,000 jobs on the DWP Find a Job website are roles which specify that you can work from home?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, it wouldn't be right to preempt the Chancellor's autumn statement later, but let me just say this. I'm proud of this government's record in supporting those with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, not only have we closed the disability employment gap, not only have we increased the number of employers that are now disability confident, we're also making sure that we support those who are most vulnerable in our society, not least with the cost of living payments this year, which include £150 for all those on means-tested disability benefits.
I love the way our grinning psychotic Chancellor was shuffling in his seat. Spoke volumes, didn't it? You can always tell also when our Prime Minister is flailing when he said,
let me just say this. I'm proud of this government's record.
Basically means I'm filling the void with word salad. But the thing for me is, if you're living in poverty, perpetual poverty, for a good length of time, living on the bottom line, should I say, what job are you going to do from home if you cannot afford broadband? Cannot afford a laptop, don't even own one, unable to use one due to either illness or because you may not be tech savvy. Let's be honest here, it's just a policy to be mean, isn't it? Pure and simple. But anyway, the next came from the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer. Yeah, I know. It'll be like pulling teeth out for the Kid Starver or the Sir Keith fans, but still a good question.
This week, the Prime Minister unveiled the latest version of his 5 pledges for the country. Let's hope he has more success with these than the last ones. Did he forget the NHS?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, not only when I became Prime Minister, just weeks after becoming Prime Minister, we injected record funding into the NHS and in social care. We also unveiled the first ever long-term workforce plan in the NHS's 75-year history. But I'm pleased he mentioned the 5 pledges because, as he knows, 3 of them are economic, and on a day which we will focus on the economy, I'm pleased to report that we have indeed halved inflation, no thanks to the party opposite. We have indeed grown the economy, and we have indeed reduced debt. That's a Conservative government delivering for this country.
Yes, what happened to the NHS? Clearly a promise that was never ever going to be close to be met, was it? So instead of doubling their efforts and doing their best to meet it, they just cast it aside and just hope that you didn't notice. And less said about the drivel of an answer he said after. It was just ridiculous, wasn't it? It just seemed like, I'll dream up another question and answer that one, wasn't it? But we need to be honest here about something Keir Starmer said here and pick up on it.
Well, the reason he ignored the NHS, not only in his new pledges, but just now, is because 7.8 million people are currently on the waiting lists. That's 500,000 more than when he pledged to bring them down nearly a year ago.
Keir Starmer said that 7.8 million people are currently on NHS waiting lists. This isn't what the latest NHS England figures show. As we wrote earlier this week about a similar claim, there are an estimated 6.5 million individual patients waiting for treatment in England. They are waiting for 7.8 million treatment pathways to begin. Some are waiting for multiple courses of treatment. Also goes on to say, Mr Starmer is the 3rd Labour politician we've heard make this claim over the last week alongside Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves and MP Angela Eagle. We also got to say that he was right to say that number of people on waiting lists in England has risen by about 500,000 in the past year. Now, we'll give people the benefit of the doubt and say we're all fallible and make mistakes. But when Rachel Reeves and Angela Rayner have already repeated this line, I cannot really say that, can I? But anyway, let's go to the part where a certain potty-mouthed minister needs to wash his mouth out with soap and water after Labour's Alex Cunningham asked this question.
Why are 34% of children in my constituency living in poverty?
Mr. Speaker, it's this government that has ensured that across our country 1.7 million fewer people are living in poverty as a result of the actions of this government. Yes, that is true, Mr. Speaker. Not only that, hundreds of thousands fewer children are living in poverty, and income inequality is at a lower level than we inherited from the party opposite. But, Mr. Speaker, we don't want any child to grow up in poverty, and the best way to make sure that that happens is to ensure that they do not grow up in a workless household. And that is why the right strategy is to ensure that we provide as many children with the opportunity to grow up with parents in work. And because of the actions of previous governments, several 100,000 more families are in that.
Got it, Durham Henry.
Now let's have another listen. Is that our Home Secretary James Not So Cleverly? Yes. Sounds like it to me. Well, an enraged Alex Cunningham wasn't going to let that go, and you could see his hands shaking with absolute rage at this point of order.
During Prime Minister's questions today, I asked the Prime Minister why 34% of children in my constituency lived in poverty. Before the Prime Minister answered, the Home Secretary chose to add in his pennyworth. Yes, I have contacted his office, advising him I plan to name him, but sadly he's chosen not to be in the chamber. He was seen and heard to say, because it's a shithole. I know he is denying being the culprit, but Madam Deputy Speaker, the audio is clear and has been checked and checked and checked again. There is no doubt that these comments shame the Home Secretary, this rotten government and the Tory party. He is clearly unfit for his high office. Can you please advise me how I can secure an apology from the Home Secretary at the dispatch box for his appalling insult and foul language?
I saved you from what the Deputy Speaker had to say because she didn't really say anything of real interest. But let's be honest here. If you live in the area of Stockton North and you vote Tory, after 13 years of Tory rule and gruel, they think your area is a shithole. After 13 years. So if you want to show your disgust at our Home Secretary at the ballot box, he's all ears. Also, our Titchy told a little bit of a fib in between telling Alex Cunningham that he knows more about the people of Stockton North than what Alex Cunningham does. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said 1.7 million fewer people are living in poverty. This is correct based on one measure of poverty, but others offer a different picture. Mr Sunak's figures appear to be based on the number of people in absolute poverty after housing costs, which has fallen by 1.7 million since 2009-2010, according to the latest DWP figures published in March. The number in relative poverty after housing costs, however, is up by 900,000 over the same period. And then he wrote about the different ways of measuring poverty in a fact-check article about a different claim back in June. Read into that as you will, and I'll leave a link in the description box for you below. But anyway, SNP MP Kirsty Blackman asked a question that highlighted a rather startling statistic, and there was a word that our Prime Minister, Titchy Shortcake, said that for me sums up this government perfectly.
Mr Speaker, in the last 13 years, the 6 oil and gas licensing rounds by the Tories have produced only 16 days' worth of oil and gas for the UK. Can the Prime Minister explain how doubling the number of licensing rounds will have any impact on the insanely high energy bills my constituents are facing? If he cared about energy security, jobs or the environment, he would surely be better matching the Scottish Government's £500 million investment in a just transition and providing a £400 rebate to bill payers.
Mr Speaker, not £500 million. We're investing tens of billions of pounds in the energy transition, not least with things like carbon capture and storage, which the North Sea can play a starring role in. But it's just completely wrong. In order to have energy security, it's right to exploit the resources that we have here at home. Even the Independent Committee for Climate Change projects that we will still need oil and gas as we make the transition and in decades' time. So the question from the Honourable Lady is, are we better off getting that here at home, supporting Scottish jobs and businesses, or are we better off putting that money in the hands of foreign dictators and shipping it here with 2 or 3 times the carbon emissions?
Only 16 days of oil and gas for the UK. After all that time, that's quite shocking for me. But did you hear the word that I was talking about?
In order to have energy security, it's right to exploit the resources that we have here at home.
Yes, exploit. Why not say extract or use for the benefit of the British people? Use the word exploit. It's almost like saying the quiet bit out loud, isn't it? They've exploited everything for the last 13 odd years, haven't they? But anyway, save the very best till last. Labour MP Daniel Zeichner, sorry if I butchered it, I do apologise, proper got under the skin of our Prime Minister when he poked fun at the love of his life. No, not his wife, but Elon Musk.
A few weeks ago, the world cringed at the Prime Minister's fawning welcome for Elon Musk.
Yep.
And this week, advertisers are fleeing Musk's platform after his latest vile outburst. So what exactly did the Prime Minister think he might learn from an unelected, super-rich individual who'd taken over a once successful organisation and plunged it into a death spiral?
Mr Speaker, it is striking. It is striking from the honourable member from Cambridge, of all places, to absolutely not understand the importance of technology sectors and companies to the growth of our economy. Absolutely extraordinary. It actually illustrates everything that is wrong with Labour's approach to our economy, Mr Speaker. What the rest of the world saw was the UK playing a lead in defining the regulations and approach to a technology that is going to transform how we live. It was a great example of the UK leading the way, an enormous tribute to our incredible entrepreneurs and businesses, many of which are being poorly represented by him and his constituency.
Proper lost it, didn't it? Absolute strop, wasn't it? You could tell it proper got right under his skin and he had an absolute meltdown. Brilliant. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below and I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.